Hello everyone, welcome to our February Training Tuesday event for OU Campus. Today's topic is testing design changes without wrecking your site. We'll be covering how to test simple changes such as new color schemes and changing page layout without disrupting your live website. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode as the session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, you may submit it by clicking on the Q&A tab located on the right-hand side of your WebEx screen. Make sure it's Q&A and not chat so we have your email address in case your question warrants a follow-up reply. Simply type your question into the dialog box at the bottom of the screen and send. We will attempt to address your questions during the presentation. After the formal presentation is ended, we will review and answer all remaining questions. Your presenter today is Barbara McQuillan, software trainer at OmniUpdate. Barbara, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Erica. So today we're going to be jumping into testing out design changes, preferably without wrecking your site. So let's talk about our agenda for today. We're going to start by just discussing how design files are going to be incorporated into OU Campus. So when you're looking at your PCF files, all of the source code that will eventually be used to create your flat HTML files for your final publication don't exist there. They're actually broken down into different pieces. So we'll start by walking through that process. Then we're going to talk about creating test environments. So we'll create a singular design test file, we'll create a design directory, and we'll talk a little bit about creating a test site. And then finally, at the end, we're going to talk about how to hide your test environment from the world. So we'll talk about how to make sure that your live site doesn't get associated with it, how other OU Campus users can be blocked from finding it in search, and then how to make sure that it keeps out of any of your OU search or indexing bots to make sure that all of your design changes are completely internal until you're ready to make them live to the world. So let's just jump straight into our system. I'm looking at one of our sandbox environments here. I'm going to go ahead and just scroll down to the bottom and use our direct edit link, which is our last updated date. And I'm going to go ahead and log in as a level 10 administrator. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and say pick a random page. So maybe inside the About, I was playing with the President's page before. Maybe we'll start by just looking at this. So on the page itself, I do have a rendition or a preview of what it'll look like on the live site. But if I go into the source code on this page, and I'll make it a little bit larger, so it's a little bit easier to read, you're going to notice I have a little bit of information for head code, body code, foot code, but as soon as I scroll down, you jump straight into these OUC divs. OUC properties, continue to scroll down, I have a bunch of parameters. So I'm not seeing the header, the footer, and the body content as I would see appearing on the live site. So where does all that information come in? How do they build this page itself that is including my header, my site navigation, my footer down at the bottom? Well, that we're going to jump back into the source, and we're going to take a look at our PCF style sheets. So line 2 here, my apologies for the obnoxious highlighting color. You're going to notice it's pointing us to a path inside our XSL file. So it's pointing us to the interior.xsl. So let's hold on to this tab for a second, and we'll navigate to interior.xsl in a separate tab. So inside _ resources, inside my XSL, there's my interior.xsl. So here is the XSL that is acting on the page. Your XSL is where you're going to be finding the actual layout for the page itself. So as I'm taking a look at this here, I see a little bit of namesakes being named at the top. And then again, I have another import for another XSL. You'll notice this one is going to be page relative. It's at the same level, and it's pulling in common.xsl. So again, I'll hold this tab. I'll open up a new one here. And I'll go ahead and open up my common.xsl as well. Again, I have my namesakes being named at the top. Again, I have a whole bunch more XSL files being imported. And if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see in my particular instance, I do have my listing of all of my links to my style sheets. Your particular implementation may be a little bit different, so please keep that in mind. For some of our implementations, instead of having all of your CSS listed here in your link nodes, you may instead have a head code include file that's getting called in, or your particular references to these style sheets may be in a different XSL. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at your particular implementation. So you're going to notice all of my links here are referencing these dependency tags. So taking a look at it, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at here, but I have a lovely gadget that'll help me. So opening up my gadget sidebar, I have a gadget called dependency tag info. So if we just start at the top, I'm going to copy this dependency tag, pasted it into that dependency tag info gadget, and it'll tell me which path this particular dependency tag is pointing to. So this is my foundations minified file. What I'm looking for is the file that's actually controlling the CSS for this particular page. There's my font awesome. Scrolling down the line, Flex Slider is one of my galleries. Color box, again, one of my galleries. Let's all bet money now it's going to be the last one because that's how life usually works, isn't it? Yep, there's another gallery. This is going to be the CSS that I can manipulate. There we go. So the CSS that's getting pulled in that is actually stylizing the page that we were looking at before is my styles.css. So again, I'll leave my comment open. I'll open up a new tab. Back inside my underscore resources, inside CSS, I have a file called styles.css. So here's the CSS that's being applied to that particular page. So I needed to kind of follow my way down that rabbit hole to figure out which CSS file is being acted here and which one I could change. So that gives you an idea of how all that information is pulling in. So let's talk about how you would create an individual page that you can design your testing in. So let's say this president's page here, I want to do some design testing. I don't want to do it on the live page, but I want a redesign page where I can do a little bit of tweaking. So coming back out to the pages list view, instead of using this live page, I'm instead going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to go ahead and just rename it President-Redesign. So now I have the secondary page. It exists inside OU Campus, but it's not being linked to anywhere because it's a copy. So any of the links on the side navigation are still pointing to that primary file. I won't touch that one. I won't make changes to that one. We'll play with the redesign one. As soon as you make a copy, you're going to notice that there's going to be no versions. So there is no background on this because it is brand new. So I highly, highly, highly recommend when you're making any changes to your PCFs, to your XSLs, to your CSS, to whatever, the first thing you should do is make a version so that way you have something to come back to. So the version button is going to be this little box with a little arrow pointing down on it. By clicking on that, it'll give me the opportunity to save a version. So we'll call this original copy prior to redesign changes. So now, if I make a giant mess of this page, I always have this particular version here. I can always hover over it and click revert, which will wipe out any of the changes I have inside the staging server, and it'll allow me to be able to go back to that original. So let's talk about some of the ways that you can make design changes on this page. So completely internal to this page, I can open up the source code and start adding in either head styling or inline styling. So let's say up here in this head code node, I wanted to just add in a quick style node. Maybe we'll put in something that's going to have an effect on our H1, and maybe we'll just go ahead and change the color to something that's dramatically different, maybe to the color red. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and you'll see that's automatically being applied to my H1 here for the president's page. Back into the source code, I can continue making these head styles here, or I can find individual nodes and add inline styling. So here's a lovely paragraph tag here. Let's go ahead and add just a little bit of inline styling here. So I'm able to say the style here. We'll change the color. Let's make it a little bit different. Maybe we'll make this light blue. And let's add for dramatic effect. We'll put in a background color of red. Save. Oh yeah, that is a nice dramatic change there. So all of these changes that I'm making on this individual page completely inside the PCF, so I haven't made changes to any other files, keeping in mind that my original President's page is still living here. It has not seen any of those changes. It's all nice and neat. So that is a quick and easy way to be able to make some of those minor changes to your CSS to be able to start trying out different ideas. But it is internal to this one page. If I wanted to do external styling, I would need to do a couple of steps in order to make that work. So remember all these tabs we had up here? This is the path that we were following in order to get to that CSS. So in order to create an external styling style sheet for this, I'm basically going to start from the CSS and backtrack. So back to that styles.css, I don't want to make any changes to this because this is affecting my entire live site. Instead, coming back out to the pages, I'm going to make a copy. And then go ahead and rename it styles-redesign. All right, so now I have a new CSS file that I can play with. But now I got to link my page to this CSS. So taking one step backwards out to common. Remember, here's that dependency tag that was bringing up the styles. Again, I don't want to make changes to this particular XSL. So I'll go back out to pages, and from the common, I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to rename it, call it common-redesign. And then in here, instead of having this dependency tag that is pointing me to the styles.css, I'm just going to click on this insert file path link here, and I'm going to point to my new CSS page, my styles redesign. Perfect. So now I have the new dependency tag. Let's just throw it into that dependency tag info gadget just to confirm. Yep, styles-redesign. Perfect. We'll go ahead and save that. So now, taking another step backwards, here's my interior page. Again, I don't want to make changes to this one. File copy. We'll go ahead and rename this one again, interior-redesign. Inside this XSL, I need again to point it to the right common, so common-redesign. Save this. Now, the last step is to get back out to that PCF. Back inside the source code, I'm going to go ahead and change that original interior call to interior-redesign. Save. Perfect. So now I've essentially created a new path the whole way down. Keep in mind, I've created copies of each one of these things. So for each one of them, I want to create a quick version before I make any of my changes. So that way I can always go back to what I had before. Save. Perfect. So now let's do a side-by-side for a quick moment here. Perfect. So here's my CSS. Here's the end of the line. On the left-hand side, I have the actual page itself. Let's go into that source code. Let's take out the head code that we had here. So my head code is back to that black text. And now inside my CSS, I can make some adjustments. So now inside the CSS, all of my headers are getting my H font family. So let's see if we can add in here some coloration. Let's see if we're calling that color anywhere else. We'll find all of our H1s. Looks like this is a good generic one. So let's see about adding in that line here. Now here's the thing about your CSS. Let's refresh this page right here. The CSS inside OU Campus is going to be pulled from the production version of it. So even though I've made a change to this styles-redesign and saved it in here, only that live page is going to get pulled in. So I will need to publish it out in order for it to make a change. Now I can come back to my page and refresh. And now I have my H1 change. So now I have an external page that I can use as my external style sheet, and I can make changes. And anything that happens on this CSS, this styles-redesign, it is only linked to this one page. So I can make my changes here and not worry about any other changes that may happen across the board. Other things to be aware of, when you're making these changes, you should be able to see it immediately as you refresh your page. If you make a change inside that CSS and you publish it out, and you're not seeing the page actually update, it could be a caching issue. So you know, you're going to want to go ahead and either refresh the browser without using the cache or just clear your history out in order to make sure that you're seeing the changes that you're making. Perfect. Excuse me. So you've now seen how to make those changes to your CSS, but what happens if I wanted to make changes to the actual page layout? So based upon this page, let's see how many other things that I can turn on using my page parameters gadget. So for those of you who have never seen it, as long as the page is checked out to you, if you go to properties and then parameters, you have this whole list of different options where you can turn on things or turn off things based upon the layout in your particular implementation. This works very well, but I don't like the fact that it is separated out and I can't see the page when I'm making changes. So if I stay in edit mode and I instead look at my page parameters gadget, you'll notice title, description, tags, custom settings, it's all the exact same parameters, but now I have it side by side with my page. So I can make my adjustments here and make the change. So maybe I want this not to say President's page, but Barbara's page. Go ahead and hit save, and I'll see it updated immediately. So I don't have to do that back and forth. So, ooh, I have an image slider. Let's go ahead and turn on that image slider. And let's go ahead and add a gallery to it. So maybe there's one. All right. So now I have a couple of different sections inside here. But maybe for my particular redesign, I actually want to start moving around these sections. I want to redesign the page itself. Well, that doesn't live inside my CSS. Instead, that's going to live inside my XSL. So let's shift that over to the side again. Let's take a look at that interior.xsl or interior-redesign.xsl. So see at the top, you have your namesakes. We have the different additional XSL files that we're importing. Continue to scroll down. I have my main content region. So here's my page header, my navigation. Continue to scroll down. This particular section for my implementation is determining how many columns are going to be appearing on that page. And as I continue to scroll, I'm going to see this section here, this XSL if. Let's just give it a little bit of spacing. This is my image slider region. So this is going to create that image slider. Directly underneath it, I have my XSL apply templates. That's pulling in my main content, or this big editable region that has main content written here. So if I wanted to say trade these out, so maybe I want the text on the top and I want my image slider down at the bottom, I can make the adjustment right here inside my XSL. I'm going to save my page here, and then all I need to do is refresh. And you'll notice for XSL, it will immediately apply. I don't have to publish out my XSL to make changes and be able to see it inside OU Campus. If I wanted this to be live out on the site, I would just need to republish the page itself. So essentially, when you publish a page, it grabs the XSL during that publication process and uses that to build the page. So if I make changes here, it won't dynamically change out on the live site. I would need to republish the page in order to see that change. All right. So we've taken a look at how to do your external styling. We've taken a look at how to do your page layout. So that's all fine and good if you have a singular page that you are working on. There's a good chance that if you're doing tests, you're going to be using a much larger space. You may need to test out lots of different types of pages. So maybe a singular page won't be enough for you. And instead, you're going to want to use an entire directory. So let's navigate back out to my pages list view, back to my home. So there are a couple of different ways that you can kind of make this work. So let's talk about your resources for a second. Inside your _resources folder is essentially everything that you need in order to make your pages. So So your CSS, your JavaScript, all of it. If you're making changes to all these across the board, it is a big process to go through and make a copy of every single file. Instead, it may behoove you to simply copy the entire folder. So, file, copy. I'm going to make my new _resources folder. But instead for this one, I'm going to need to be very particular about how all of those internal files are linking to each other. That will be very, very dependent upon your implementation. Let's do a quick refresh, see if we're ready. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and just rename this _resources redesign. Now, things you're going to need to look out for. Inside your XSL, as we looked at that common dash redesign, you notice that what you're seeing here are page relative paths. That's excellent. That means I don't have to go through and change out every single one because it's all page relative. It's perfect. If you have in your design a different paths, so that was our XSL. We were looking at the common.xsl before. We look down here and you see these dependency tags. These all need to update to the ones that are in the new folder. So this was my styles. I would need to actually update this one because it is a dependency tag to point to the resources redesign CSS that I wanted it to grab. So that might just take some additional going through and piecing together to make sure that everything is referring to this new _resources folder. So best case scenario, it's all page relative, and then you don't have to worry about anything. If it is dependency tags, you'll have to manually change those. If it is hard-coded paths that are like this one, that are root relative, that you can actually make changes using your find and replace. So under content, we'll open up another tab because it's fun, all the way down to the end. So I'm going to trade out anywhere that says _resources and replace it with _resources dash redesign. Make this page a little bit bigger. And then I'm only going to be focusing inside this _resources dash redesign folder. So any of those changes are only going to happen inside this redesign folder. It'll point to all those paths appropriately, and then I won't have to worry about going back and tracking through things. So it looks like there's a good number inside my particular instance that have that root relative path. So this is a nice, easy way to be able to make that adjustment and change. So that's terrific for making my resources. But what about making a new section of your site? So for that, I'm actually just going to start by creating a folder. So there's no section here at all. I'm going to call it redesign. And I'm specifically choosing a folder right now because a folder is not going to get added onto my site navigation. And it's not going to bring in any templates yet because I'm not ready to pull them in. So here I have my folder, my redesign. There's nothing in here right now. Now I need to create templates that I'll be able to use for my redesign. So as you guys recall, hovering over setup and going to templates, I'll be able to see all of the different templates that exist here. I'm going to want to create new templates for my redesign. So maybe I want to create an interior page wizard and say an interior section page wizard specifically for the redesign. So I got the content pages. Inside my _resources folder, yeah, you would need to do it inside your _resources folder because that's where your templates are getting pulled from. OU, templates, here's my interior. So right now I have an interior trifecta of files here. This is what's making that new page wizard work. So when I hit +new and I click on my new interior page, what I'm looking at right now is the TCF. So this is the form field. After I fill in all these forms, all that information will be grabbed and placed into the TMPL file that creates the new PCF. And then the interior .gif file or any kind of image file is being associated with that TCF. So in order to make a new redesign interior, I'm going to need a new one of each of these. Make a copy. We're going to name it redesign. So there's my image. Ooh. For the TCF, I'm going to make a copy. I'll rename it redesign. And my TMPL, I'll make a copy. And I will rename it redesign. Perfect. So as long as the image and the TCF file both have the same name before that extension, those will automatically be associated. Inside the TCF, if I scroll down here, your variable list is all of those individual questions and prompts that are going to be asked. And down here at the bottom, I have a section that says template list. So right now, it's going to be creating a template using interior.tmpl. Well, this is going to be my redesign one. So again, I'm just going to update this. So it's now using the redesign.tmpl. Perfect. Save. Let's take a look at that interior-redesign.tmpl. Hey, it looks a lot like my PCF. It essentially is the PCF. The only difference that I'm seeing here is I'll have these lines that say echo var. So they're echoing the variable that you placed inside that form field. But it essentially is that PCF stamp. So back here up at the top, I don't want it to pull interior. I want it to pull in interior-redesign. Again, I'll hit save. So now I have this brand new template that's interior-redesign. So if I go to set up templates, it'll automatically be found. Here it is. Let's go ahead and give it a new title to make it a little bit clearer. Let's call it redesign at the beginning. And I don't know if I want everyone to have access to this new redesign template. So I would probably change this access on here. I'm going to switch it to administrators only inside my instance. But in your instance, if you have particular groups of web developers who will need access to it, you could switch it to that group. We'll go ahead and hit save in the bottom right-hand corner. Perfect. I'm also going to want to do the same for my section, because I'm going to want to be able to create a new redesign section. Back to content pages. Let's go ahead and find the section. There it is. And all I need to do here is make my copies. And again, I'm going to open up that TCF and take a look at what it's pulling in for its templates. So it's pulling in a template, it's pulling in the navigation, okay? And then continue to scroll down, it's pulling in that interior TMPL. So again, I'll update this to the interior-redesign. Save. Perfect. So now I have an individual page as well as a section. Back to set up templates, I need to create a template group that associates these two. So we'll go ahead and just call this template group redesign. I didn't rename it. Which one's which? Oh, back to templates. Let's rename it. I did that specifically so you could see that moment right there. Yeah. Perfect. Now back to template groups. We'll create our new redesign template group. And I'll choose my redesign new section and my redesign interior page. Great. Perfect. So now these two, I only want to appear on that one redesign folder. So let's assign it as the template group. Back to content pages, back to the root of my site, I have my redesign folder here. I'm going to hover over edit and click access. There's nothing in this folder yet, agreed. I am going to apply my changes recursively though, just because by applying my changes recursively, it means from this folder in every child, these changes will apply. So if I did have other sections already built in here, and I wanted to keep it as part of this redesign template group, I'd want to apply it recursively. So we'll go ahead and change our template group to redesign. Hit save. Perfect. So now when I hit plus new here, I have my options of my two redesign page wizards. So I can put in my section, I can put in my interior page. Depending upon the way your site is set up, having all of this buried inside a folder may or may not break your site navigation. It really depends upon how your site was designed for that particular piece. So when I hit the put in a new section, no special characters, no capitals, got it. I'm going to say, yes, go ahead and add it to the navigation item because there is no navigation item at this level. So I don't have to worry about accidentally associating it with my main site. Back up to pages, you'll see as soon as I created that section, it also created the side nav for me. So I do recommend inside the folder for redesign, you put in a section because it'll create all those associated files that your site may need. So you may see side navigation or just a nav.inc or .pcf. You may have underscore props files or other things like that. Often those files are going to be necessary in order for your site navigation and your breadcrumbs to work. So now here I am inside this index page. If I check my source, it's already pulling in that redesign XSL. So I already have it set up so I can start making changes, and inside this section, I'm only putting in templates that call on that new XSL, which calls on the new common.xsl, which calls on the new CSS file. Excellent. Okay, the last option that you have when you're talking about creating a redesign environment is to create an entirely new site. So under Setup Sites, if you hover over my actions, I can go ahead and clone the site. There are some things that you're going to want to check beforehand. So if you have Dependency Manager on both the original site and the clone site, it will work out really well because everything will transfer over appropriately and all the associations for the new folder will associate correctly. I have a question back at the single directory. So is there a way to set a single directory to use a specific publish target different from the rest of the site? There's not a way to set it on the directory. However, you could set it for the people. So we'll come back to cloning in just a second. Inside Setup Sites, there we go. I have the option to add additional published targets. So I would need all of my publish information here for my production server. Down at the bottom, I can switch the available to. So if I have a web developers group, I could set this publish site available to the web developers group. So no one else would be able to publish to this place, only those people would. The only concern that I might see in that is if those web developers are in other places throughout the site, they would just need to keep an eye on which target they're publishing to make sure it's going to the right spot. Good question. All right, so back to sites. Under Actions to clone, you would need a new location for the site to exist. So you're either going to need a new domain or a subfolder inside your current domain. There is an excellent Training Tuesday from September of 2017 where Brian Laird walks you through the process of cloning. So that in itself is an entire Training Tuesday. So I will leave you guys to that to check that Training Tuesday or to check our support site for additional information about cloning. But that's essentially your last option. It would create an entire clone of your site, so you would have everything there. You can copy all of your staging folders and files, so they can all pull over, and then you have a completely separate environment to work in. All right, so that walks us through all of the different ways that you can start testing your design changes. The last thing I want to touch upon with you guys today is how to hide your test environment for the world. So as we mentioned, when we first created our redesign, the first thing I did was I added it as a folder. This makes sure that I'm not getting that side navigation linking. If your particular implementation requires side navigation at every single folder level in order for the navigation to work, you can still create a new section, but just make sure that you're not adding a navigation item to it. This will make sure it does not accidentally appear on the side navigation on your main site, so no one accidentally clicks on it and moves there. So that'll make sure that you're not having that link associated to your live site. How do you hide your test environment from other OU Campus users? Well, there are a couple of things that you can do. Starting with the site, as we talked about earlier, you can change the access settings on it. So hovering over the row, over edit and clicking access, I can go ahead and change who has access to this. So right now I have it set to everyone. I'm going to apply this change recursively, and I'm going to switch it over to administrators only, or to your web development team as it is appropriate. So now my common users won't be able to get inside this folder, so they won't be able to play, putz, tweak, or make any adjustments to it. Other things that you can do, also under that edit access, scrolling down to the bottom, I have this option here to exclude from search. This search is the internal search inside OU Campus. So when I'm looking for content here and I click advanced search, this particular search is completely internal and the index is built inside OU Campus. By selecting the exclude from search here, and then again, applying it recursively, so everything inside is going to be excluded from search, it'll keep it out of that index. So your end users who are using that advanced search don't accidentally come upon this folder or any of the files inside of it. So that will kind of lock down that section of your site from your internal OU Campus users. The last thing that I have has to do with how you keep it out of indexing bots. How do you keep it out of OU search? How do you keep it off of Google? A couple of different things you can do there. Hovering over once more and clicking on access. Again, applying recursively, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to exclude this from my sitemap. So if your site has a sitemap, oftentimes that is going to be referred to in your robots.txt file, and your Google bots or Yahoo bots or whatever of the world will use that sitemap in order to do their crawling. If you exclude it from the sitemap, you'll make sure that this doesn't accidentally appear on it and you don't accidentally have those bots finding it. So there's a good first step for you. Inside OU search, and I don't have an instance for it, but just so you are aware, if you do have OU search, there is a section that allows you to exclude certain file paths or individual pages. So you could add the exclusion in so that that entire folder is not going to be searched. If you have a robots.txt file, you can add in a particular exclusion. So I do not have a robots.txt file here. But if I did, I can just add in a simple exclusion that would look a little something like this. So my user agent being that asterisk, that will identify any of those search and crawling bots. And then I would want to disallow the particular page that I didn't want searched. So for ours, it was redesign /redesign HTML. So that's how I would be able to do it using my robots.txt file. If you do not have access to the robots.txt, or if you do not have a robots.txt, you can also add a meta tag directly into the page. So back onto the page, back inside the source code, I'm going to add something else into the head code, and it's going to be a meta tag. It's going to be named robots. And I'm going to put in a content of no index, comma, no follow. And then I am going to close that tag at the end. So this will tell any of those robots, any of those searching bots, not to index this page, as well as not to follow any links that they find on it. So I can do this on a page-by-page basis if I don't have access to that robots.txt file to make sure this particular page does not get picked up. All right. So that essentially wraps up all the things that I wanted to address with you today about changing and testing your design files without wrecking your site. Are there any questions out there that you would like me to answer? right. It seems like everybody feels brilliant, which is excellent. So if you do have additional questions, by all means, check out our support site or touch base with us here. Erica, I think I'm going to hand it back to you for a little bit of a plug for OUTC.
Yes, so we're not going to be having Training Tuesday next month because our conference will be the last week of March instead. So if you haven't registered yet, definitely encourage you, outc18.com, sign up. We're going to have more workshops like this. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have presentations. We're down in Anaheim near Disneyland, so it's going to be a really good time. Sign up now. The deadline for registration is in, I believe, a couple weeks, so make sure you get on it. And yeah, for everyone who's already registered, I look forward to seeing you there. If there's any other questions.
I can hang out for just a couple minutes in case there are any other lingering questions. Otherwise, I want to wish you all a good rest of your day.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions come in, so I'm just going to wrap this up. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending.
Oh, one more. Update will be rolled out. Which update? Which update are you referring to? So the ability to be able to make these design changes, you can do inherently inside OU Campus. So you would need to have, or all the things that I did today required level 10 administration. So you would need to be a level 10 in order to be able to walk through the processes that I showed you today. Being able to do any of these pieces is going to be available to you. Perfect. You're very welcome. Enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And won't see you next month because of the conference, but then after that, keep an eye out for the registration for April's Training Tuesday. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.